All right, everybody. Hey, I'm Nunzio Signore. Thanks for coming in. I know a bunch of you're probably mostly all already your kids are already members, or you are as an athlete already here. So I just want to take this is a presentation that I give every year around this time, with in-season training starting in about literally a month, literally 4 weeks. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start. So today we're going to talk about how to maintain and maximize the performance within season training. And what I mean by that is the maintaining the performance that we've already had in season. Um, I know it can be hard to continue to train in season with games, practices, and tournaments, school going on. Um, Everybody's got a hectic schedule. Some of you have multiple children, and then when we get into the summer travel schedule. But it's important, really important, to understand that once this power output begins to decline, major compensations begin to take place up the chain, and it compromises overall performance. And we're going to talk about what those compromises are. So first, how long does it actually take before you see performance begin to degrade once training stops? So this table on the next page, this explains the different training adaptations that you train as an athlete. We're not really concerned too much with aerobic strength and endurance. Baseball is not an aerobic sport. It's an anaerobic sport. That means that things happen really fast. So we're really concerned with the bottom four. Okay. Um, let's take them one by one. So max strength, you have about 30 days, plus or minus 5 days. So that could be anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 weeks before drops in strength start to happen. Sometimes it's even sooner. And this is something, if you're not continuing to train, you're going to have a hard time. What happens when guys lose strength? They have a hard time holding on to the ball, maintaining really uh, efficient postures on the mound and behind the plate. For example, I see a lot of pitchers that around this happens, we would say about 6 weeks. We're talking about the end of April. Pitchers, beginning of May, pitchers will start to throw high and arm side, only for the simple reason that they're losing the strength in their lower half and their core, so they really can't hold these positions of extension out front. And what ends up happening is, when they ain't got it no more, honestly, they don't have it anymore. And the brain tells the body, let go of the ball. And this happens earlier and earlier as they get more and more tired. As far as hitters go, that translates into your power and your bat speed, and how hard, and your exit velocity, how hard you can hit the ball. Okay, how fast you can swing the bat. Okay, this transcends into power. Okay, power is even less. Power is basically 2 to 3 weeks, okay, before you start seeing power loss. The difference between strength and power is, strength is how strong you are. Power is how quickly you can apply that strength. Okay, so we're in a sport like baseball. It's a power sport. Things happen so fast that really the most important thing is how you can apply that strength. Okay, so if you start to lose power, which actually dissipates fast, 2 to 3 weeks is fast. We end our off season March 10th, March 12th. That's like April 14th. That's really when you guys start playing baseball, and it becomes a downward spiral, what we call the controlled fall. Power endurance, that is how quickly we can go and stop, for how long. Okay, that's 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, and then speed is the thing that gets lost the quickest, because speed is a culmination of strength, power, and power endurance. And speed, you've basically got a week before you'll start to see changes in an athlete's running speed. Okay, that is why probably the best thing about starting practices is because they're playing baseball, they are running, and they are sprinting, hopefully. If your coach is not sprinting you during the season, when the season starts, that's a grave mistake. But I'm thinking that a lot of guys, a lot of coaches at this point know enough to continue to speed train as soon as they get into the season, because that's going to go fast. We don't, in our in-season programs, we're going to give you a little bit of speed just in case you've got a coach that doesn't, but we're not as concerned with speed or aerobic strength, the two sides of those adaptations, as we are with max strength power and the amount of time that you can continue to hold power. And these, so you're looking at, you've got 4 to 6 weeks for strength, and you've got about, 2 to 3 weeks with power and power endurance. So position players, there's topics to consider. This isn't just, about pitching. Losses in strength and power, like I said, losses in bat speed. It could take an 85 mile per hour pitch. Once you lose bat speed, that 85 mile per hour pitch feels like 88 to 90 miles per hour because you can't get around as quick. And likewise for a pitcher who is getting fatigued, if our position players are training in season and they maintain their bat speed and a pitcher doesn't, now his 85 is 83, you're going to start seeing him get racked, because that's going to look a lot slower to a guy who still has his bat speed. So hope you follow me on that. Losses in running speed. Simply continuing to do sprint work at practice and games will only fatigue the athlete more unless lower body strength is maintained. So like I said before, while we are doing speed training at the school or on the team or on the travel team, whatever you're doing, that sprint work is crucial for your coach to do. But if you're not strong enough to endure the amount of ground force that you have to produce, you're only training speed as fast as your strength will allow you to train that. So as that starts to go down, so will running speed. Even if you're training running speed, if max strength goes down, speed goes away. And I always try to tell people, look at maximum strength as a pint glass. And inside the pint glass is strength, power, speed. All of these are adaptations of strength. So if you lose strength, you don't have a pint glass anymore. You now have a shot glass, okay? So now you can only fit much less of each training adaptation in that glass because your max strength has dissipated, okay? So like I said here, change of direction speed, okay? We need strength to be able to decelerate and change direction, okay? This especially holds true for infielders having to stop on a dime in order to change direction. Okay. I really don't like the term change of direction speed. I've grown to realize that, believe it or not, baseball players do not change direction. They stop and then they go the other way, but generally they plant and go to the left, plant and go to the right. If you've got an athlete who's changing directions, unless he's in a rundown, you've got a problem, because he shouldn't be changing direction. He should be going to the ball. And if he makes a move at the speed of the ball's going, change of direction speed isn't going to get you back in time to get that misread. So anyway, that's a topic for a whole nother PowerPoint. Arm health. Although not to the extreme as pitchers, this is crucial for outfielders and third basemen, shortstops, anybody really that's got to get to the ball out of their hand quickly and accurately, somewhere. And these losses in strength and mobility will compromise throwing velocity for infielders and outfielders as well. It's key. Here's the controlled fall that I'm talking about. So if you look at on the left-hand side, we have strength capacity. Okay. So after the offseason, we have built an athlete up, and we're going to look at whatever strength they've built up in that offseason. They're at 100% at that point. We're going to count where they are at the beginning of the in-season. We're going to count that as 100%. And as the course on the bottom half, as the course of the season goes longer, you can start to see around that, 1 month, like we were talking about, their training residuals start to fall. High performance is not high performance anymore once it drops below 80%. Okay. And you can see that 80%, it doesn't take too long to lose 20% of the strength and the speed and the power endurance that you've built up in the off season. And it's pretty, guys, I've been doing this for 17 years and it is never different any year. The guys, I'm just going to say it, the guys who train in season, they maintain their power adaptations, they maintain their strength, maintain their throwing velocity, they maintain their exit velocity, they maintain their running speed. The guys who do not, they have a really good month and all of a sudden they're wondering what's wrong. And a lot of times a kid will not tell you that something's wrong. For example, a kid throwing the ball 85, who's now throwing it 83 because he's getting tired, he's going to do anything he can to throw 85. And what he's going to do is he's going to start overusing his arm because he's losing his lower half. And once he starts to lose his lower half, he's trying to make it up with his upper half. So that's a really, really important thing to think about because it's a game changer as far as performance. So here's throwing velocity. So if we look at throwing velocity, we can see that here's November 1st. Here's where our pitching lab starts. Here's December 1st. Here is January 1st. And then once we start ramping up our throwing to maximum intensity after the ramp up, here's where we are around February. You can see the jump in throwing velocity from roughly 79 miles an hour to 84. Okay. Then we're here and then the lab ends. And because of the competition of gameplay and because of the outdoor and the weather changing, velocities will still continue to go up, even if they're not training. So I do have to say that guys will generally peak in around the second week of April. Okay. But I'm going to tell you, if they're not training, it drops like a cliff. As soon as all of this time has gone by without training, they're now surviving on the adrenaline of live batters or the adrenaline of the game. And once they're continue to play, the controlled fall starts to happen. And then what happens is they're not training, they're dropping. And right when it counts the most, the end of May, the beginning of June, here come playoffs, and you've gotten this controlled fall. Whereas the guys who continue to train, they're going to be here and they're going to stay here. And they're going to be here in June when it really matters. And the guys that aren't are going to be here. So you can see how it gives you the edge. But for not training, coming into summer ball, continuing not to train, now we have to add in the elements of heat. We have to add in the elements of multiple games, car rides, hotels. This is all things that do not make you stronger. They actually wear you down. Okay. So now we have summer, and then here we are in August. And then what happens in the second week of August? You stop playing altogether and you go on vacation. Now we have guys coming in September and they're almost all the way back to where they started. Okay. So what's happening is we're taking all this time to build you up. And then by you stopping training, you come back in September and we're a little bit better than we were. We want a gradual stepwise. We want to get you up here. We want to keep you here till the fall. And then we want to start here and bring you to here and keep you here till next fall and go up to here. Okay. It's a stepwise pattern. It's called long-term athletic development. And we're very, very serious about it. Why? Okay. So in season is basically recruiting, scouting season, and athletes need to perform at their best. Playing baseball makes you better at the technical side of playing baseball. It does not help you get stronger. It does not help you be more explosive and powerful. And as good as your technique is, you're only going to perform as well as your body can move. You can have the greatest eye behind the plate to hit a ball. But when you go to hit it, if your exit velocity and your bat speed is much slower, the results are much less, even though you still have your technical side. You can throw strikes, but throwing strikes at 85 and throwing strikes at 82 is a lot different for a good hitter. He'll hit you. And another thing about scouting season, a lot of kids in the in season, when they don't train and they're playing baseball, they lose weight. Okay. This does not project well to a college guy or a recruiter or a college coach that's coming to see you. Thin and weak comes off lazy. The first initial impression is huge, and that is lazy. Stronger, more athletic, good posture, that comes off as athletic. And this is what guys want to see. So on the pitching side, pitchers generally lose approximately 10 degrees of IR after each outing, due mostly in part to tightness. So this presents itself as shoulder or elbow pain in pitchers for making up velo with the arm. And I will tell you, your kid will not tell you, and he will not tell his coach that his arm hurts. They're afraid to say that. They don't want to get benched, okay? This will compound as the season goes on if you don't address it with weekly arm maintenance and strength training. So the bottom line is throwing a baseball helps increase arm speed and endurance, but gains will not be maintained unless you're also maintaining strength. And like I said before, you'll see it. Even before you see velocity go down, you'll start seeing high in arm side. You'll start seeing a lot of balls, and you'll start seeing things throwing up high because he's releasing early. And generally what happens after that is velo starts to drop. When you see that, you're in the spiral. Max strength, power, and power do not get trained in the sport of baseball enough to maintain those qualities throughout an entire season. Like I said, our in-season program is designed to train weekly what you're not getting playing baseball. We're not going to sit here and give you a lot of speed work, okay? We're not going to sit here and give you base stealing drills. We're not going to sit here and have you take reps behind the plate. You're doing that. We need to get your max strength and your power, okay? That is really what we're training. That is the glass, like I said before, that everything sits in. So to create a successful program, we have to first step is to understand that the attributes that playing the game helps develop are different from what the athlete needs to be able to consistently perform them at a high level, right? So different traits dominate different sports. And in the game of baseball, the big players here are your mobility, especially your hip, T-spine, and shoulder, your core strength. Everything in every sport is core strength. Your max strength, everything is max strength. And your power and power endurance. This is not long distance running, okay? This is not the mile swimming. This is a sport where everything happens really quickly, okay? So power and your ability to do it over and over again. What I mean by that, a pitcher's doing something really hard for about a second and a half. 2 seconds. He's got a 20-second, 30-second break, and he's got to do it again. And then he's got to do that on and off, 12 to 15 times, hopefully, in an inning, not more. And then he's going to get a 10, 15-minute break, and then he's going to do it again. And he's going to do this over the course of 2 hours. And that's power endurance. Power is the act of what he's doing when he throws, or when an athlete swings, or when you steal a base, or when you run down a fly ball. And when you do that over and over again, that's power endurance. And these are the things that we focus on an in-season training program. So let's break them down. We have mobility. Athletes don't just get hurt in season because they lose strength. They generally get hurt because they lose mobility as well, okay? This is when we start seeing lower back pain. This is when we start seeing tighter hips, shoulders, especially, I mean, I don't have to explain anything about pitchers. Okay. As soon as they start losing internal rotation, they start to actually slam shut. And this is when we start getting pain in the UCL. This is when we get pain in the anterior front of the shoulder. Okay. The amount of sitting and standing during games can be a real factor for losses in mobility. Let's face it, baseball is a game where you sit a lot. Okay. You get when you're not in the field, you're sitting. And you're sitting, and generally these kids, they have a set position that they sit in. Okay. And it's kyphotic because it's from looking at their phones all day in school, being on their phones, playing video games, and they're sitting like this. There's a great book out if you want to read it. It's called Sitting is the New Smoking. And it's a great book. Okay. I love that title because nothing could be truer. And what happens, these guys get kyphotic. They can't get external rotation. They can't get good scap load behind the plate because of their kyphosis, and it affects T-spine mobility and rotation. And we need to actually, we need to address that. What we know is that throwing a baseball is, if it's impaired, velocity will be compromised as well, and this could be anywhere, like I said, on the body. But the big players are, like I said, hip, T-spine, and shoulder mobility and stability. The T-spine. In a rotational sport, maintaining T-spine mobility is king. Whether you're scap loading when you're hitting, whether you're going back into layback and coming back around, T-spine mobility is king. The mobility of your shoulder requires movement back into the scapula after throwing. It involves you to get into good layback when you throw. The hips can get gritty from sprinting as well as posting up. Whether you're posting up on the mound or whether you're blocking when you're swinging on the plate, that front leg gets really gritty from banging into internal rotation. So this is an exercise. This is an example of some of the stuff we'll do. This is a boulder squat to reverse row, just so you guys can see kind of what guys are doing. What he's doing right now is he is rotating internally into his hip to get better rotation. And I tell him, deliver the hand with your hip. Don't think about pulling it back with your lower back and your shoulder. What I want him to do is I want him to extend and post up in that front leg. And I want him to get good T-spine rotation and good glenohumeral rotation in the arm path, in the arm slot that he uses. For the core, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but everyone talks about the importance of a strong core. There's a reason for that. The core has probably the most positive impact on breathing and endurance. It also helps transfer force from the lower body to the upper body. Everybody thinks in sport that they tell you the lower half, you got to start with your lower half, and then you bring it into your upper half, and then you bring it into your arm, and eventually into the baseball or the bat. But the truth of the matter is, your force starts in your core. You send it to the ground, and then you pick it up with your lower half. So your lower half is feeding off of the force that your core has initially thrown down into it. Okay? So to reduce the risk of such overuse injuries in season as low back pain and even shoulder problems, we have to address the core. And because kids are growing, this is probably, we don't see kids with a strong core. It's very rare that we see kids with a strong core. I will say that Eve's son has a very strong core. Andre's got a good core. And he works on it. And it's super, super important.
Yeah. I have to interrupt you and say, please don't tell him that, because he'll just eat more mac and cheese. We keep telling him his core's not strong.
Okay. He's got a pretty strong core, actually. So next, here's an example of dynamic cable lifts. What we're doing here is he's going to load up that back leg as if he was pitching or batting. And then he's going to use his core to transfer that force up from the lower half through the torso into the arms. And this is a drill we do in season. We do it in preseason. The guys will start doing this lift in February, right about now, actually, all the way till baseball season and through baseball season. Basically, it's putting it all together. Strength and power. More is not always better. Balancing your volume of your strength and mobility training is crucial. Rarely will the strength portion of an in-season strength training program last more than 35 minutes. 40 minutes is actually long. It's really 30 to 35 minutes. It's usually roughly 10 to 14 sets worth of work, add up front warm-ups, and you're talking about 50 to 55 total minutes. If it takes longer than 50 minutes, they're goofing around with their friends. So this is, we're training max strength and power in our workouts. Our weight room workouts focus on max strength and power, maintaining that strength we build up and maintaining that power, getting fast with the strength that we have. Hip bridge for max strength. The reason we use hip bridges in the in-season is because for pitchers and outfielders and third basemen and shortstops, there's a lot of throwing. And when we do trap bar deadlifts or deadlifts, that puts a lot of strain lifting heavy weight for the lower half with your arms. So this takes the arms completely out of the game, okay? And it's pure posterior chain. This is probably one of the top 5 exercises that we do all year round when the guys are throwing. Right now, our pitchers are doing all hip bridges. They are no longer trap bar deadlifting. The young guys might be, but the older guys who are lifting really heavy weight, they're not. No long distance running. So this is a pet peeve of mine because I'm going to tell you that high school, even college coaches, a lot of them, but most high school coaches, they still think that these kids got to run a mile. There's a great statement by I can't remember who it was, but it was the coach. It was the coach who coached Campbell, the running back for the Houston Oilers. I can't remember his name, but they asked. He never wanted to participate in the mile run, so his coach never made him actually do the mile run. And reporters were asking, "Hey, man, do you think it's really you really think it's a good idea to let your running back not run the mile with the rest of the team?" And he said, the next time I need him when it's 4th and a mile, I'll start making him run the mile. Basically, these guys don't really ever run, and it goes for baseball players. These guys don't really run more than, if they hit a triple, they're going to run for about 10 seconds if they're really fast. So there is no point in time in a game when an athlete needs to run. If he hits an inside the park home run, I can't imagine that it's going to take him longer than, I don't know, 15 seconds. So running a mile, a lot of coaches use it as a punishment. What he's doing is he's punishing his team, because if I had to have a guy that looked like a sprinter, or I had to have a guy that looked like this guy right here on the mound to throw gas or to hit bombs, I'm not going with this guy, right? This guy is a long distance runner. This guy's an elite athlete at something else. He can run from here to Connecticut in the drop of a hat. But if he tried to throw a baseball really hard, his humerus would snap in half. So, there's different things for different people, but baseball players should sprint, not run poles. And it's an old school thing. It's going away, and it can't go away fast enough. Here's a quick story on what not to do. Last winter, and this is a true story, one of our uncommitted pitchers, a lefty, ended the offseason in March and never returned until August. At the time of his departure, he was throwing 84, a good place to get some looks. Upon return in August, he was down to 78, 80, and still seeking a commitment. His velo should have remained at 84 to 85, or even gone up a bit. So according to his assessment in August, his weight was down 12 pounds. He had a 30% loss in shoulder IR. And if this person's father is on this call, he probably isn't, because his son now is in college. He would recognize who this is. But this is not uncommon. This happens every year. And he had a 20% loss in T-spine mobility. And I can't tell you how many times we've seen this movie. It's like it happens every year. It will happen this year, and it will happen next year, and it will happen over and over again. Generally, it happens to a family once. Unfortunately, it generally happens to the kid in 11th grade who's actually looking for a commitment, and it happens late. Okay. If it happened to a kid in 9th grade, he might be able to salvage that, but he's probably losing, like I said before, from that fall. A 9th grader is starting back in 9th grade and 10th grade from an athletic body standpoint. Okay. But he still has time. You come into 10th and 11th grade and you lose a year of athleticism because you didn't train in season and in the summer. The game caught up with you. This is another reason. Spending 4 to 6 months, and you guys can all relate with this. Spending 4 to 6 months in the off season to increase body weight, mobility, strength, and power. It's a big investment from your kids and your time standpoint, but also financially. I mean, training is not cheap. Good training is not cheap. Okay. You owe it to yourself to continue with an effective in-season baseball program, because if it trails off, and it will trail off, you're standing there and you're holding your hat in your hand. The best performers excel late in the off season, and that's when people are looking at you, and that's when you want to be at your best. So it's going to do you no good to stop training March and April and May. So my closing remarks are maintaining and even increasing, and I say even increasing because velocity goes up while you start to throw. Some guys' velocity continues to go up when they train in season all the way through May. It takes them into the summer. Okay. So in season doesn't need to occupy 4 to 5 days of your time. You can get it done in 2 to 3 days. 3 days is better for older guys. 2 days is fine for young guys, 13 to 15. They're not as long. They should take about 50 minutes. And if you want to continue to be your best in July and August, and in-season training is one of the ways you can ensure you can do that. These are our spring programs. It's a new program every 4 weeks. We suggest you come in 2 to 3 times a week. One is better than nothing, but I will tell you, not much. For older athletes, 16 and older, flexible hours, including Sundays, we're open. So because we know you're playing, we know it's hard. So you can get a lift in on Sundays if you need to. Given the hectic spring schedule, monthlies can train in-house, remote, or both. You can we can give you half your program to do at home. For the younger guys, Monday through Thursdays, 6, 7, and 8 p.m. We start them late. We know they've got baseball practice. If 2 days a week they can get on those, or maybe they can hit a Sunday. If you guys can hit a Sunday class, 11, 12, or 1, then you've only got to come once a week for these young guys. You only got to come one day, Monday through Thursday, after baseball. So it's really not something that you've got to, it's not like you're going to be here all day. This is in-season strength training for a month. This is what it looks like in-season strength training plus tune-ups. What this means is a lot of guys want to not only take advantage of our strength training, but they've been training with our hitting with Andrew or Nico and Matt, or 2 Matts. They want to come in and they want to, get some tune-ups. So 2 pitching or hitting sessions, that's like 2 a month. It's $3.99. For 3 pitching or hitting sessions, it's $4.99. Once a week, it's $4.99. 3 times a month is $4.49. 2 times every 2 weeks, $3.99. Fielding sessions, we haven't figured that out yet, but we're going to get that happening. We will send emails out. We will also send emails out with this Zoom call again. It's 3 recurring payments, so it's every month. Starts Monday, March 10th. It's the first day of baseball season, and it ends the 30th of May, in which case we will talk about summer at that point. You can train in the summer as well if you wish, but we're really, really trying to get you through the baseball season into May 30th. You get to May 30th, you don't have to worry about things until the second, third week of June, actually, before you have to actually start worrying about things trailing off in the summer. So that's it. I'm going to open it up to questions. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Nunzio, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, but now you just
Well,
cut out. Okay,
um,
there you go.
let's hear me. Will there be an option?
Actually, you're cutting out really bad. Anyone else? Wow, this is really good. That must have been pretty thorough because no one has questions. All right. Going, gone. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for coming in. I'm really telling you, we want to see your kid here in the in season. We know him. Um, you know, I'm so adamant about in-season training. If something happens and you just can't get to us, you can either remote train. But listen, if something happens and you can't get to us and you can't remote train, make sure your kid's getting strong somehow. Make sure he's getting strong. Eve, you there? Can't hear you. There you
Can you
go.
hear me now?
Yeah.
Will there be an option to do like one pitching and one hitting? Like, will there be a package for that, or do we have to just continue doing that separately per week?
Um, I would have to ask my partner for that. I'm sure if you're going to take two pitching or hitting sessions, I'm sure you can bust that into one and one.
Okay, because I know, yeah, I'm sure he's gonna want to do one and one.
Yeah, like it says two pitching or hitting sessions. Those two pitching or hitting sessions, I'm sure I don't see why you couldn't break that up to one and
No,
one.
he'd want to do one and one every week, knowing him.
Okay, so that would be,
That
oh,
would
that
be
would,
8 instead of the 4 is what I'm saying.
yeah, that would be a different price that we don't even have. But I'm sure, I'll talk to Baram. Baram will call you and tell you.
Yeah,
Any
I can talk to
like
him.
she's asking if he could do a tune-up both pitching and hitting. The four pitching or hitting sessions over the month. Um, she's asking if he could do every week. He could do one pitching and one hitting. That would actually be 8 pitching or hitting sessions over the month.
Mhm.
I'm absolutely sure that we could do that. I just have to let you know.
Um,
I would be interested in that also.
Great. So I'm going to tell Baram that if you guys can call the front desk and ask Lisa to
yeah.
please contact Baram, because the one thing
Mhm.
I stay away from completely is I do not want to deal with pricing.
You know,